Hello, Mom. It's been a delight being one of your sons. It says in the good book that blessed is the person who has many arrows in his quiver.
And 7 sons.
Yeah.
Someplace it said something about
Yeah.
7 sons.
Yeah. What are some of the blessings of having a full quiver?
I just have never known anything else, and it's been a delight, and it's just there's so many different talents of different kids and different families, and it's just amazing, and I'm constantly surprised, pleased, rarely disappointed. It's just it's just interesting having so many children that, in your bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's over 50 now.
Mm-hmm. When you think about all the children, you never imagined that you would have that many.
Oh, never, never.
One thing that strikes me is that in regard to all that we've gone through, you've always been an encourager. Where do you think you got that?
I don't know. A motto that I live by is be the best version of yourself. So I think being the best version means that, first of all, you love them unconditionally, and just always encourage them, and just be totally pleased when they come to visit and have a nice, talk. And
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I can't complain. I just always say I've had a good life. And I think back to when I was 4 years old, and the neighbors across the street, and I'd go over there and sit in Mrs. Johnson's kitchen, and her daughter Joanne would go and sit in my mom's. We'd go and visit each other's mothers. And I remember one time Mrs. Johnson was draining some pasta in a colander,
Mm-hmm.
and it slipped out of the colander and into the sink, And so she said to me, Eileen, you better go home because your mother wouldn't want you to hear what I'm going to say. And I just always remember that. She wouldn't want you to hear, because she had a foul mouth, and they lived across the street, and she and her husband would get in a fight, and I'd be on the front porch right across the street, and God, they'd be cussing each other up one side and down the other. But I used to go over there and sit in her kitchen a lot, and she'd come over and sit in my mom's kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
We were the only 2 houses on the street.
Wow.
Lived across the street from each other.
Could you tell us a little bit about your meeting Dad time? Could you share a little bit, maybe some things that none of us ever knew?
I don't know. I mean, all I can tell is I remember it. I went to a dance up at Dick Parker's. First time I'd only been to high school dances, and I went with my friend, and her sister, who was 2 years older, took us up there. And so I was scared spitless. And my mother was scared. She said, oh, there's all those sailor boys up there. Here's this 17-year-old baby who's never been out, hardly. So then we went up to Dick Parker's, and so we went in the girls' room, and I stayed in there about a half an hour. I was scared to go out. I'd never been out. And so I finally went out, and I sat up on near the stage, near the band, and there was about a whole big stag line, 20 guys to get to the dance floor, and anyway, so and Stan asked me to dance, and I think I danced with him every dance. I don't know that I danced with anybody else, and he had come there with Jim Goldade, who there was only 3 Catholic families east of Aurora, and so That's where I, that's where I would talk to him.
How about the first date?
Well, so then he said, he asked if he could come out and we'd we'd rent bikes and ride around Green Lake. So that's what we did the next morning. And he loved the place called the Wishbone out in Bothell. And he said they made such good sandwiches. So that's where he took me. And then the next, we had to go to school because it was in April 18th, 1942. And anyway, that's kind of where it was.
Wow, yeah. And where was he working?
He worked at Vic Frank's. And so it was just down the end of the street from Lincoln where I went to school.
Okay.
And I was in school. So he started picking me up and bringing me home. And then when he discovered what a good cook my mother was, he came every day. And my mom was all nervous because she was nervous that things weren't good enough. And she didn't, but she was an excellent cook. And we had a cow and chickens, so we had a good garden and stuff. So
what did she think of Dad?
I don't. Well, she made her nervous that he came every day. He brought me home from school. Well, his mom worked, and my mom was a good cook. Mm-hmm. So that was part of the attraction, why he maybe kept coming.
Okay. Okay. So I was going to ask you how it felt being a field general. I know as 11 of us kids, we really learned that we had to work together, and everybody pitched in. I remember canning and, getting ready for dinner and all that stuff. But
you know what I remember about that? When we'd be canning and we'd have all in that big dining room table and stuff, and the neighbor kids would come, remember? And so I bought extra peelers because they wanted you guys to play, so they figured if they helped with the peeling, they'd get done faster.
That's great.
Yeah. The tailors and them, they'd come to the door, and I finally learned that, that if I had a few extra peelers, they'd help.
You don't think the Strickland grit comes from you?
I don't know, maybe, they weren't, I guess maybe they were. I was a tomboy when I grew up.
Yeah.
My dad, he'd work on his car and do different stuff, and I was the youngest, so I was always working with him. And when he was doing something, it was usually what a boy would do, and he'd take me to help him out when he'd be gardening or doing something or whatever. Anyway, he had me his helper, so I kind of, like I say, grew up to be a tomboy.
Well, do you think that helped you with 11 kids?
Well, I don't know. Not particularly. I mean, he let me do all that. He brought in the money.
He brought in the money?
Yeah.
Well, let's just say, what is your full name?
Eileen Isabel Strickland. Isabelle.
Is Isabel a family name?
I have no. The only thing I can think of is because I was born in October, and it's Christopher Columbus, Isabel, Queen Isabel. Mm-hmm. I think that's where it came from.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up when I got married, we bought property from my folks on 137th and 1st Northeast near Haller Lake School.
But where did your parents live?
Well, they came from Grandview, Washington, which is 40 miles down from Yakima, between Yakima and near Sunnyside. They were 10 miles from Sunnyside.
And what did your dad do?
My dad was an apple orchard. They had an apple orchard over there, and my two older sisters were born in there, over in in Grandview.
So, apple pie is in our blood.
Well, I don't know, because they lived there, and then in 1922 they came to Seattle, and I was born in 24, but my two older sisters were born over there, and my dad had an apple orchard, but then he got sick from the spray. It made him sick, so he had to quit the apple orchard. But so then they came to Seattle. Well, then he worked for the Ford company, Ford plant,
There's one in
in
Seattle?
Seattle in 1922.
And do you know what generation your parents were?
What do you mean?
Immigrants?
No, they had lived. Well, my mom lived in Grandview, and my dad grew up in Mississippi. Then he moved up to Puyallup, and I don't know what he did there. But he went to high school there, and then he met my mom, and somehow I don't remember how they wound up in Seattle.
Yeah. So what is our family? Because I don't really know. So your paternal grandparents, where are they from?
Well, yeah, my mother was from Austria. My dad was from Mississippi,
Okay.
and then he wound up in Grandview, where my mom wound up. That's near Yakima.
What is your mother's full name?
Margaret Thelma Leckman. That was her maiden name.
Okay.
Lachman, Leckman.
And what was your father's full name?
Frank Hobson Greenslade.
Okay.
Nobody knows where the Hobson came from. They always said, well, where nobody knew where it came from, but that's what he got.
How did you meet Grandpa?
At Dick Parker's. The first time I'd ever been to a dance other than a PTA dance in high school. I was still in high school, a senior. I met him April 18th, and I graduated in June.
Was he dancing?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, my feet were hurting so bad. I had danced every dance, and my feet were just killing me. So I went up and sat on a chair near the stage, out of the way of the dancing, you know. And I said to myself, I don't care who asks me. I'm not going to dance anymore. But my feet were killing. And he come up and asked me, and I said, yeah. So. And we danced all the rest of the dances, and he happened to be there with the Gold Days were one of the Catholic families east of 99,
Yeah.
and and here he had come with Jim Goldade, you know, and because he was 4.5 years older than me, you know.
What made you say yes?
You
thought he was handsome?
I always said yes.
Did you think he was handsome?
I don't know. He just wanted to dance, and I wanted to dance. I never really thought that much about it, but he apparently was impressed because he danced with me the rest of the night, and then he asked if he could come, if I would come. He'd pick me up Sunday morning after church, and we'd rent bikes and ride around Green Lake.
Oh, that's cute.
And then we went, and then he took me out to the Wishbone in Bothell because he said they had really good chicken sandwiches.
What did you talk about?
God,
Or
who
did
knows?
you talk?
Yeah, we talk anything. Don't ask me what. I just imagine, and of course he was there with Jim Goldade, who we had known the Goldade families for 20 years. So, and he and Jim, they were classmates at Lincoln.
How long did you two date before he asked you to marry him?
6 weeks.
Okay, and during that 6 weeks, did you ever talk about what you wanted, like, out of life, or like, how many kids do you want? Do you want to have lots of kids?
I doubt very much.
Yeah.
You know, I was only 17.
No, I know.
So
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Well, it's funny because these days there are a lot of, you know, when you get married or you're with a partner, you talk about
Yeah.
how many kids you want or what kind of family. Did you ever have those
Well,
conversations?
yeah, I do remember us talking about after we dated for a while. if how many kids we wanted, you know. And I remember, I think we said 3 or 4, you know, and I don't know whether he said it or I said it, something about we'll probably have a dozen. And we were just kidding, you know, but I do remember some comment like that being made.
Was there ever a point after 3 or 4 kids where you both said, oh, "Are we done?"
No, I don't know. We never expected to have that many kids. It just happened. Shit happens.
What important life lessons did you learn from your parents that you practiced with your own family?
I think a strong work ethic.
Did your mom have an apple pie recipe? Is that where you learned how to make apple pie?
I don't know. I guess she did. I mean, I just learned to make. I learned to bake and pies and cakes before I ever learned to cook meat and potatoes.
Who taught you that? Who taught you how to cook?
My mom, you know, and of course, then when we bought the property next to them, so they were next door. So my mom and dad were next door, and they helped out with babysitting when the kids were little, and my dad helped Stan build a house. We took the garage, and we added a bathroom and a little back room where we had bunk beds for the kids. And then we finally built around the kitchen and bathroom and stuff. We built all the way around it and then upstairs through the years to make the house the size it was that the kids grew up in.
Were you close with your siblings?
You know, we were so separate, not super. They were all good, really good to me, because my oldest sister was 7 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
And when I was 10, she entered the convent. She was a nun, you know. And then Dorothy was 4.5 years older than me. So, you know, I was going into high school, and she had graduated and had a job, and then she moved to San Francisco where my aunt lived and worked for the IRS.
Oh, yeah.
And so did Aunt Betty.
Yeah, Aunt Betty.
Yeah.
Aunt Betty was Grandpa's sister, though, right?
No, Aunt Betty was my mother's sister.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is that how your sister got the job? Was it through Betty?
I don't know. Yeah, Aunt Betty lived down there, and then Dorothy moved to San Francisco, and then she got a job with the IRS.
So since your sisters lived far away, growing up and raising all the kids, who was your support system?
Well,
they say it takes a village.
Mostly the kids. I went to Howler Lake, and we'd gone through 8th grade. You know, I mean, and so that was mainly. I mean, I had neighbors. I had 3 or 4 girls that lived within 5 blocks of me, and so that was mainly.
What about when you were a mom? Like who was your support system when you and Grandpa were raising all the kids?
Well, let me see. That was in 1942, and the war was on, and and of course I had got married young and had a baby, and my best friend Liz, she and she was living in the garage of her parents' house, which is across from Ingram High School, and so we and at night what we do, we had a wood stove, and so she'd come bring her baby, and we'd put she and Stanley, we'd put the 2 babies in the crib, and then we'd build a fire, and then let it go down, and then we'd sit by the fire, and we'd make hot cocoa and chocolate chip cookies, and we'd sit there. We'd put the 2 babies. She had a baby about the same age as Stanley, and then we'd sit there and laugh and giggle until 3 in the morning like crazies. And that was in 1942.
Did you keep that friendship as you had more kids?
Oh yeah, I mean, because I stayed in the same spot for 70 years, you know, and so yeah, I had. Yeah, I had friends from all over, and then for 6 months I worked down at Boeing during the war, and so
Who watched the kids?
well, my mom. It was a swing shift. I worked the swing shift,
Oh, wow.
and so my mom took care of the babies, my baby, and he was like about 2 at that point, I think. Seems
So
like.
you only had Stanley at the time?
Yeah, well, yeah, because there was before I had your mom, there was 4 years in there, and Stan was gone 2.5 years in
Wow.
the service.
What was that like? With Grandpa gone for 2.5 years?
I don't know, all my other friends who had babies, and I kept in touch with a lot of my high school friends.
Did Grandpa write letters?
Oh yeah, nice letters. In fact, I got them downstairs somewhere
Yeah.
with the pictures.
Was he romantic?
Yeah, in the letters. Yeah. Yeah, he
nice.
wasn't very demonstrative. The kids will tell you he just wasn't.
But he was in his letters? He was expressive in
Yeah,
his letters?
more so. And I remember I've got it down there somewhere with the pictures that on our anniversary, which was the 17th of October.
Did that make those letters even more special?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know, all the things he promised to do when he loved me so much and all this stuff, Well, he came home, he was the same old, same old. But he was not a very demonstrative person. Where, Frank, the second husband I had,
Yeah.
God, he told me he loved me 20 times a day.
What qualities did you love about Grandpa?
No, but
That's fine.
we didn't do much with anybody for about 15 years. He was busy building the house, but he didn't like to socialize, even with the neighbors. I mean, he was an introvert. And then he started being, and once he started socializing with the neighbors across the street and some of my friends and stuff, man, he just fell right into the thing, and for the people in Christ the King, and meeting the parents of some of the kids, parents, and then he got real social.
What did he like to do? Like, how did he like to socialize?
He liked to read.
He liked to read.
He liked to read.
But what did you two as a couple like to do with your friends? What did you enjoy as a couple to do together?
Well, we played cards. We played pinochle, and we had 16 couples. This was from Christ the King, and they liked to play, and they have become our lifelong friends.
Where did you play with 16
We
people?
go different houses.
Okay.
Like on a Saturday night,
Yeah.
I'd have it, and we'd have usually I think we started out with 3 tables of 4 at each table, and then I think some dropped out or whatever, but mainly then we just had about 8 of us
That's fun.
that played. We'd go to different people's houses on. I don't know whether you
Did
played
they all
once or
bring-
twice a month. I can't remember how often.
So you have 16 people there. Did they all bring their kids too?
Well, not to play pinochle.
Oh, they all got babysitters.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Norm and Kathy had property over on Bainbridge Island. A couple times a year, we'd go over there and stay all night, stay for the weekend. They had a loft at the top of their house over there in Bainbridge, and they had 12 beds up there.
Yeah.
And so we'd go over there and we'd sleep up in the loft.
I'm curious as a parent myself, what did Monday through Friday look like with that many kids? Like with school and dinner and
I don't know, honey. I just did what had to be done.
I'm sure you had a routine though.
I don't know, but I know that I had, and one thing I remember is Mary, your mom, when she was old enough, she would often make the lunches for everybody.
Oh wow.
And, and so up inside the cupboard door in the kitchen was a piece of paper, and it told who liked peanut butter, who didn't, and whatever. And so there was a list up there for each kid, because she'd be making who wanted this, that. Some wanted mayonnaise.
I'm surprised you
some
catered
wanted
to that.
mayo.
I'm surprised you catered to that. It'd be like, everybody's getting PBJ. That's it. I remember my mom told me one time that you started a water fight in the house.
I don't remember that, but I know when we were camping.
I heard that you brought a hose in.
Yeah,
one time.
oh God, they had a bucket. Oh, and they get thrown at every. Oh, they just went, but they had a good time. But I remember it mainly when we were camping, and we were in our bathing suits, you know. And I remember Stanley one time water skiing, and he skied up about 20 feet up the beach.
Oh, wow.
He had the skis on, and he let go, and then they flew into the beach, and he went way beyond that was over at Lake Pearrygin.
What were some family traditions that the Strickland house had, like that you did every year for certain holidays?
God, I don't remember.
Well, I remember we always sang.
Yeah. I had to fight everybody because they didn't want to do anything. I always wanted to have a nice big Christmas carol, you know. And the Dykes neighbors, they used to come around, and so we'd join in with them.
What about, like, were there any Christmas recipes that you made every year?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm trying to think.
Did you make cinnamon rolls?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I made cinnamon rolls 24/7, you know, all year long. Everybody loved them. And I made like about 18 pans at Christmas time to take to neighbors and friends.
Wow.
Anyway, I remember doing that. Everybody loved my They were good, cinnamon rolls.
I know, you taught
I
me
was
once.
a good bread baker.
I was too young.
And I made our bread for years, all our bread.
Yeah, I heard that was dessert for Grandpa, that and jam.
Yeah, they'd like when you took it out of the oven and the bread's hot, and you slice it, and you put butter on it, and it soaks down in. And I usually had, homemade jam.
When did you start growing raspberries?
Oh, I had raspberries forever, because my folks had them, and they were right alongside our house when we bought the property from my dad. There was a big row of raspberries.
Are they those raspberries? Are those the same ones?
Probably, yeah. They're the
Wow.
children of those.
Wow. So did your mom teach you how to preserve and can? Or did you learn that yourself?
Well, no, I'm sure I must have helped her before I was married.
Yeah.
And so I kind of knew what to do.
And did you butcher your own chickens and ducks?
When I was growing up, not when I was married, but when I was growing up, my dad got 1,000 baby chicks every year.
Wow.
He had a big brooder, the thing that they play under, and live under. And so I did that.
But so you raised chickens later just for the
No,
eggs?
yeah. No, I didn't. No. I never raised them for that, but Dad would.
I think Mom remembers like plucking chickens.
Oh yeah, my dad would kill 30 chickens, and he'd have a big boiler there full of boiling water. So I'd have to douse them, and then pluck the feathers out after, and then I'd have to clean them. And I was only a freshman in high school when I did that. I worked hard. That's my folks, that's where they made their living.
I remember sometimes when you chopped the heads off.
I never chopped the heads off.
The heads would still be.
Oh yeah, they'd be jumping around.
See, that's what I was wondering. Who did that?
Well, my dad killed the chickens.
Did Grandpa kill the chickens?
Yeah, he'd kill the
Okay.
chickens.
Yeah.
And then he'd put them on the ground, and they'd flop around for maybe a minute or two, and then.
I'm curious, like, with that many kids, did you ever get a chance to do something by yourself?
I don't remember. I'm sure there were. I think there was a few times that I went away for a weekend or something.
Or even just once a day. Like, was it sewing, or was there a hobby that?
Oh, I sewed a lot whenever I got a chance. I loved to sew.
And did you do that
and
by
I made a
yourself?
lot. Yeah, I made a lot. It was a treadle machine, and I made a lot. Most of the kids' clothes, until I made their clothes until you could go down to the North Gate and get a pair of boys' shorts for 50 cents. Who wasn't worth it to make them? I mean, you couldn't even buy that much material.
Who fought the most? Which siblings fought the most?
I think your mom and Steve. They were a year apart, and they fought a lot, you know.
Did you have to like break that up?
Well,
or did
yeah,
you, or
yeah,
just
you
let
know.
it-
and
or did you let them sort it out?
Well, I don't remember. I did whatever I could to get them to stop and maybe not do it again. But yeah, I mean, you guys, yeah, I mean, being a year apart,
Irish
they
twins.
they I mean, kids fight,
Yeah.
you know, and when you're really close in age, you know, and when you're like say between 18 and 22, each one of you are going through something,
Yeah.
trying to find yourself, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Can you run down the kids like in order, of first to last?
Yeah, Stanley, Mary, Steve, Chris, Tom, Maggie, Mark, Noel, Mike, and John.
Betsy.
Oh God, I forgot Betsy. Sorry, Betsy.
Okay, starting with Stanley, can you tell me just, it doesn't have to be anything in particular, just like a memory that comes to mind about Stanley as a kid?
Well, yeah, one time when we were gone, how'd that go? Because we must have had two cars. Anyway, he took the car out and he wound up 2 blocks down the street in the ditch. But he got his friends he didn't hurt anything, except that there was grass between the tire and the rim. So he had gone into the ditch and turned the tire somehow that the grass got in there. I just remember that.
Who's after Stan again?
Stanley.
My mom.
Yeah, Mom.
What about?
Yeah, well, I don't think she did anything unexpected or whatever.
She told me one funny story, and I'd be interested in your perspective about how she fainted when she was a candy striper.
Oh, well, I wasn't there.
Oh no, but she told me how you picked her up. She said that you rolled up in the car roaring laughing because you knew what had happened.
Yeah, I wasn't very sympathetic. I thought it was funny. Well, she just was always so reliable and steady and always did a good job. Yeah, she was a good, and it's Betsy too.
Well, being your first daughter,
Yeah.
did you fight?
Oh God, probably. I imagine. I mean, she wasn't very out of line.
Yeah, did you ever get calls from the school about any of the kids?
Oh yeah. I'm trying to think. Stanley from Blanchette, he got expelled for something.
Oh, wow.
Mary, I don't remember. They went to the Catholic school, and so they were pretty well under control. And I don't remember anybody breaking the rules, but I'm sure they did. I just don't remember.
Who lit the field on fire? Or grass?
Oh, that was Chris and the neighbor kid.
Tell me that story.
Well, the fire department came, and so we lived right in the middle of a block, and there were streets all the way around us, but the only way back to where the fire was through my yard, and it was like 300 or 400 feet back in there.
Oh.
That was the day we were married.
Yeah, maybe, okay, because she's seen it. Let's
Standing
talk about
out by a bush in our front yard, my sister took the picture.
Who shared bedrooms?
Well, we had upstairs. We had a bedroom, one place at the end of the house on the what side? That was the north side of the house. And then on the other side was just kind of a big dormitory, and that's where the girls slept. The ceiling went down and then down, you know, up under the rafters.
Mom told me a story once, I think, when I was a kid and I was not cleaning my room, and she shoved everything in a box that was on the floor and took it away. And then she told me that what you would do is if the kids' rooms weren't clean, you would empty everything out into a big pile in the middle of their room.
I don't remember that. I probably sounds like me. Naughty, naughty.
What was one of your go-to meals to prepare? Because Mom told me that you never made a casserole.
Very seldom, because Stan didn't like them. Stan didn't like casseroles, so I rarely made one.
So what did you make to feed everybody?
I don't know.
That would have been really easy.
Meat and potatoes and whatever. I don't remember.
Did you rely on the garden a lot?
Yeah, my dad. I didn't. I wasn't. I was pretty good at gardening, but I didn't do it for very many years. It was just
really?
easier not to.
Oh, I just assumed that a lot of like your produce and.
Well, we had a garden.
Yeah,
but
so that's what I'm wondering. Not not a garden.
It wasn't that big of a garden.
I thought it was like it was huge. Didn't we call it the Garden of Gethsemane?
Not to my knowledge. You know, I mean, because I was the one that had to take care of it. We had a lot of berries, and we had a cherry tree.
Yeah.
And we had this big cherry tree with these delicious Bing cherries. Mm-hmm. And we just ate them like crazy. And so we had a big bowl. We had some of our friends over for a potluck. And so I put out this nice big bowl, these nice cherries we'd been eating. And one of the little girls took a bite out of one and there was a worm in it. Turns out they all had worms in them. And we'd been eating them like crazy.
Well.
And I jokingly said, well, all they've eaten is cherry.
Why did you hide the cookies?
Because the boys would find them and they'd eat them before I even got to them or knew anybody was at them.
Yeah, I can't imagine raising. You had 7 sons. Did they just eat you out of house and home?
No, well, we had plenty of food.
Yeah.
You know.
When you all went camping, did everybody fit in one car, or did you have to take multiple cars?
For a few years we had to take 2 cars. We had a big old International.
I'm guessing this is pre-seatbelt, so you just sardined everybody in?
Yeah, I guess it was pre-seatbelt. And then so what we would do, we would take 2 cars because we'd had to have that just for them to sit. And then we had one of those little trailers that's got, like it's a 6 feet square or something. Mm-hmm. And so then that would be a playpen for John. We could put him in there with blankets and toys because, you know.
I think Mom told me a story where she didn't put on the emergency brake and didn't the...
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell that
Oh,
story?
kid, it was just a miracle because the cars just started to roll. Just because the kids were running around, it must have just been the vibration of the ground. And it rolled down to the cliff to where there was a drop off of about maybe 4 or 6 feet, and it just stopped. The one wheel went over, and then it was down, and so it stopped it. So then Stan had to get the other car and rig it up and pull the other one out.
Wow. What was it like when all your kids started having kids?
Well, it was interesting.
What was interesting about it?
I don't know. It's just another generation, you know.
Did you hope that your kids would have lots of kids too?
No, I never, I never wished anybody to have as many as I did. I just think that 2 or 3 would maybe be enough, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I really, although I survived and I don't regret it, but it is a lot of hard work, and with the generation like it is today, it's.
Did you ever like lay in bed at night and think, how am I going to do this tomorrow?
Oh,
like raising that many kids, or just you didn't have time to think about it?
I suppose I did, honey, but you know, I just have always taken one day at a time.
I think that's
and
wise.
and I just figure, if this is happening, God's going to give me the grace, the courage, and whatever to be able to get through this. And it's such a different generation, from what it was 20 years ago, what's going on in the world.
What's your advice to, I don't know, you've lived 99 years. So what, out of everything, what's your advice?
I think you got to believe in God, and that we're here for a reason, and we should be the best version of ourselves. That's what I can say. Be the best version of yourself every day, which is to be forgiving and helpful, and try and always speak the truth. Like I say, just be the best version of yourself. And I think it's important to, when you're speaking with somebody, to try and understand where they're coming from and how you can help them. I'm just a big one for helping anybody and everybody.
When did you start making sandwiches for the homeless?
I'd go down to Francis' house to take clothes and things like that people would give me. And that's kind of where I got started. So then I started taking sandwiches down.
So you did that on your own?
I just did that on my own. And I know sometimes I'd be driving 2 or 3 blocks from there, and I'd see people on the side of the street. So I'd roll my window down and I'd say, would you like a sandwich? Because they were walking down to Francis' house. That's where they gave them. They got coffee and a sandwich.
How many would you make every week?
Oh, maybe 20 or 30 sandwiches.
This is what I think, and you can tell me what you think. But do you think doing something like that regularly has helped you stay compassionate? Because it's easy to become hardened as we get older. And I don't feel like that's happened with you.
No, I didn't. And I know that people do get, and they'd get, and sometimes people were really ungrateful, and and you think, but you you give it. I just gave them, and as within 2 or 3 blocks of getting down to Francis' house, there'd be people walk along the street, and I knew they were going to Francis' house, so I'd give them. Sometimes I'd give be at a stoplight, and I'd see a guy, and I'd say, would you like a sandwich? So I'd give him a sandwich.
That's nice. What did you and Grandpa really enjoy to do? What did you enjoy doing together, just the two of you?
We like to go over to we had the property over there in Blewett Pass that we would go to.
Family property?
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It was my uncle who lived over there, and so, but then the roads kind of grew over, so we couldn't go there anymore.
Did Grandpa have a good sense of humor?
Yeah, he did. It kind of a crazy one. I mean, it was. He'd laugh at the damnedest things. I can't remember now what it was, but I mean, he laughed at stuff that nobody else laughed at.
Did you two laugh together?
Yeah.
A lot? Yeah.
And we had a lot of friends, and that played pinochle, and then Norm and Kathy had property over on across the bay. I can't remember now where. Anyway, and we'd go there, and we did a lot of things. And Bill and Jan, we went camping at Lake Pearrygin, and so we had a lot of couples that we did things with. We had a ton of friends.
That's nice.
A ton of friends.
Do you think that having that many friends got you through raising that many kids and doing it together?
Oh,
because that's community,
Yeah, well, because one of the other couples, they had 10 kids.
Yeah.
And Bill and Jan, 3 couples had 10 kids, and we had 11.
So I'm guessing back then you didn't have to make reservations. Would you all just show up and take over a campground, or
Yeah.
or
Well,
were you not at a campground?
we didn't at the very beginning. We just went, and there was always an opening, and then we'd camp together.
How many tents did you have?
Oh, we just had the one.
What do you mean you had one tent?
Well, we had the camper,
Oh, you had the camper, but how many kids could you fit in the camper?
all of them. I mean, they laid up on the top bunk and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I remember one time we were driving along and we could hear a bunch of noise in the back, and somebody had opened the refrigerator, and the milk had fallen out and spilled on the floor. So they were, but we could feel the rumbling in the front of our cab. And of course they had the curtain closed, so we couldn't see what was going on. But that only happened once.
What's the first vacation you and Grandpa ever took together?
I kind of think it was up at. It's just before you get to the pass. I can't remember the name. What's the name? Bumping Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the two of you? When did you?
Oh no, we didn't go. We didn't go camp until we had kids.
No, I know, but what was the first vacation just the two of you went on? Was that later, like when you went to Mexico, or
Probably.
Did Grandpa go to Israel?
No.
Okay. What did he
Oh,
do?
I went to Israel after we were married. I don't remember.
How many kids did you have? At
Well,
the
I know. I
time?
left them home. I just went by myself.
So Grandpa was alone with the kids.
Yeah.
How did he?
And then he didn't like that.
Yeah.
He didn't like me, and he liked to sit and read and pretend that nobody else was around. He wasn't a very good babysitter. I have to say that.
Okay.
I didn't feel. Only 2 or 3 times did I go on a retreat or something.
This might be a hard one, but maybe not. Did you especially since all the kids, I'm guessing, had lots of chores and things to do? Can you point out what certain kids were really good at?
The kids were good at.
Yeah, that you noticed growing up. Like, especially since a lot of them went into trades.
Well,
Who was good at
all the girls
building
wanted to
things?
sew, and
Yeah.
so they had the machine, and I encouraged them to, get material, and then I'd help them a little bit, so they did most of the thinking for themselves.
Stan, Mary, Steve.
Steve, Chris, Tom, Maggie, Betsy, Mark, Noel, Mike, and John.
All right.
See, I get an A+ for remembering.
Do you have any fun memories of Chris?
Chris,
Yeah.
oh gosh, I know there are. Oh, he was, when he wanted to go on his, I remember this one, he was going to go on his high school, the prom, whatever they went when they were in high school. He wanted to take a girl to the prom, and so he rented a car
Oh,
in
wow.
high school because we had an old International. And I said, well, we could use that car to go. He said,
No.
I'm not going to go in that tank.
That wasn't a car to impress the ladies.
Yeah, I can't remember what he rented, but it was a nice fancy car. Like,
Do you have a fun or funny or any memory of Maggie that you want to highlight?
Oh, I know one. They called me one day and said that they invited Stan and I to an awards dinner.
Who? Oh, the school.
At Ingram. It was something that I don't know, the American Legion or something, gave her that. And and they said it would cost us like $10 each. And I didn't figure any reason to go, so I said we didn't want to go. Well, then I came to find out later that Maggie was going to be honored because she was picked out of the home economics, the students, so we were supposed to go. But I thought if it cost money, I didn't care.
What about Betsy?
She was a joy because she did everything right. She never shocked us into anything, you know. She just was always real dedicated, and you know, I was real proud of her. You know, she did. I'm trying to think of something in particular, but I can't right now. But and your mom too. They both were good students, and they tried hard, and they applied themselves, and I was just proud that they were interested in doing a good job at whatever they did.
With all the kids when they were born or as they were growing up, did you and Grandpa have moments or that's your kid?
I'm sure things that, especially the boys, the girls usually were right in line, but the boys would do stuff crazy.
Well, I don't mean.
Oh, yeah, let me tell you one. I probably shouldn't tell you this. Mark streaked through Ingram. He was in some place, and he had somebody at one of the exit doors. So he streaked, so he ran out the exit door, and there was one of his friends there that closed it, made sure that it was open.
Do you know what?
Oh, I couldn't believe Mark of all kids.
Did you get a call?
No, oh no, nobody. My neighbor whose kid went to Ingram told me. He never told me. He probably never would have.
What was Noelle like as a kid?
Oh, Noelle was always a good girl. She really was. Well, all the girls were.
I know, but what were their personalities like? Were they funny or more social? Or...
Oh, Noelle was always really social. And I remember that when she was in 7th grade, the teacher called me and told me that it was a pleasure to have her in the class. She was really impressed.
What's a good memory of Mike?
Mike was kind of a dreamer, and he in shop. And
what about John? Any
John?
Fun or funny memories?
John was John. I mean, he was a nonconformist.
How many kids were in the house when John was a kid?
John was born 5 years before Mike, after Mike. 5 years after
really?
Mike.
Oh, wow.
So there was quite a time that...
Was there a point where he was by himself?
By the time he was born, Mike was entering kindergarten. They were 5 years apart.
Which kid do you think is most like you?
I don't know. I guess they've all got a little bit. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I think so.
What would be? I don't know what is my predominant good quality, if there is one.
What do you think your greatest skill is?
I guess I would say homemaking.
How about your greatest personality trait, or something that you're most proud of about who you are?
The one I'm least proud of is I talk too much.
Well, it works here.
What's my predominant? What do I think?
No, not predominant. What are you most proud of about who you are?
I am most proud of my compassion, my empathy for people who are struggling or, whatever, don't have enough money, whatever. I just am empathetic that people, and I'm empathetic that people that have problems with communication. I mean, I could communicate with a broom. And so, and some of my kids are really shy. I found that out when we had our 50th wedding anniversary, and all the kids stood up there and everybody said something, and some of them were tongue-tied and could hardly say a thing,
Do you think that's like Grandpa?
Yeah, like Grandpa.
Yeah. Maybe they should have written a letter.
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine that you'd live this long?
God, no. I never
longevity-
really thought about how long I'd live,
Yeah.
but I certainly didn't think it'd be this long.
Because longevity
This is too long.
runs in our family.
Well, yeah, my one sister was 90 when she died, and the other sister was 101.
Yeah.
And my Aunt Polly, she was 101. Aunt Betty was 98, and most of the other ones were between 90 and 95. But the boys, the two uncles, they both died in their 70s.
Oh, wow.
So the women are long-lived.
Out of your 99 years, can you think of a really great decade? What was a good decade of your life?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It was back when we had the Knights of Columbus, and we had, we'd had a ton of friends, and we had a pinochle club and this and that, the other thing, and I don't know. I remember, in what years that was, probably in maybe the 80s or something, partly because the kids went to a Catholic school, so we knew everybody really well. Kids had gone to school together for 8 years, and that was just the school, and then we'd see each other at church, and that was one of the big blessings, I think, that the kids went to a Catholic school, and we knew the parents and stuff, and we went camping with them, and yeah, so.
What was your worst decade?
Oh God, probably the last one.
How do you feel about end of life?
Can't come soon enough. They say the last life for which is the best for which the first was made. I just kind of figure I'm in God's hands, and I try and be aware. Every day I say, let me be the best version of myself. I just want to be compassionate and helpful, and if anything I've done, I've learned anything that will benefit somebody else, I've just always liked to help people.
Who do you think's been the most influential person in your life?
Mrs. McPherson. They owned McPherson Realty, and her daughter Ann and I we'd been playing together since kindergarten. We met at Hallow Lake School. She lived on the south, out by Northwest Hospital, and then I lived here. Ann would come up and hang out with my mom, and I'd go and hang out with her mom,
Yeah.
And she was just, and I stopped real frequently because I'd come around the lake when I was been down to someplace or Northgate or something, and I'd often stop and visit with her. And she lived to be 100, and she and I were buddy. I'd stop by and we'd have cheese and crackers, and she'd have a little puny fire in her fireplace, and we'd sit and visit. I'd stop at least once every a month, or maybe once every couple months, but often.
Yeah.
And I just loved her dearly. She was just a sweet. She was only about 4'9", just
So, I always have memories growing up where you would always wear like fun things. You had crazy earrings and
Yeah, I was
crazy-
known for my crazy earrings.
Well, when did that start? Was there a point?
I don't know.
But was there a point in your
I've always been crazy, Jennifer. I've always kind of been off the wall. I should complain about my kids. I've just always been my own person.
So there wasn't a point in your life where you were like, I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. I'm going to wear what I want. Or were you always that way?
I think I was always that way.
Okay, Mom, so you were born in 1924, and the stock market crashed in 1929. Can you tell me what it was like for you from, growing up during the Depression?
I didn't know anything else. I mean, I don't remember it affecting me, because I lived on a mini farm, where we had eggs and chickens and cows, and we even had a pig. who bit my dad, and man, he had a black fingernail for months.
Do you remember your parents being stressed or being short of money or not? I mean, did you have?
I'm sure I knew that they had to watch their pennies, that they didn't have any to spare. But like I say, because we lived on a mini farm where we had cows and milk and chickens, that my folks raised 1,000 baby chicks a year, and so we ate a lot of chicken.
Was that enough? Having the mini farm, was that enough for you to have clothes to wear, shoes to wear?
Well, I didn't have the stuff like cashmere sweaters and things that other girls did. My mom made all my clothes. She'd take my aunts, who they weren't married, and so she took their coats, tore them apart, turned the inside out, and then made me a coat with what was the inside of their coats.
Wow.
So the material looked new.
Did you ever feel that you didn't have enough to eat, or?
Never. We always had enough to eat.
Now your mom took in boarders.
My mom boarded about 45 kids, because they gave her an award through the Catholic Charities because she had fostered so many kids.
And so you lived in a big house.
Yeah, she'd have about 5 kids.
And did you have your own room?
Yeah.
And where did the foster kids, where were they placed?
Well, they had 5 bedrooms. There were 4 bedrooms upstairs, and so there was plenty of room.
What about your sisters?
You know, they were pretty much, Sister Christine was gone. She entered the convent when she was 13.
17.
18, yeah.
So she was kind of out of the house
Yeah.
when you were 10.
Yeah.
So do you have much of a memory of living with Sister Christine?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember living with her. One of the things I remember about Sister Christine was when she'd only got to come visit once a year. And she liked gizzards. So my mom would set aside and have a whole plate full of gizzards. And I was jealous because I wanted some of them too, because I liked them. And Mom maybe gave me one, and Sister Christine would get to 15 because she only came to visit once a year.
Yeah, but do you remember living with Sister Christine?
You know, not a whole lot.
Did you feel like with all those other kids in the house, did you feel like you didn't get as much of your mom's attention?
You know, I don't think I ever thought about it. I don't think I ever really thought about it.
So you didn't really feel like you went without anything because
No.
of the depression?
And a lot of the kids, Ethel Warner was one I remembered. She was about my age. And so there was always my mom had sometimes 5 boarders. She got, I think, about $30 a month. I got $1 a day, I think. And that's what kept us afloat because my dad, you know, he sold berries and eggs and chickens. He'd butcher chickens, and he had this egg route that he took, and so.
Did he get cash, or was he bartering? Did he exchange goods with some people?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Not to my
And
knowledge.
what would your mom make for, big crowds of, what did she cook? Do you remember?
I don't know. She was a good cook, and everything tasted good, and I'm sure she made soups and stews, and I'm sure we had a lot of chicken. I don't remember, but I'm sure we did have a lot of chicken.
Did you guys ever go on a vacation together or a trip or?
I don't ever remember going on a vacation.
Did you?
Or my folks.
Okay. Did they ever see their parents? Did you ever see your grandparents?
Oh yeah, but they lived in Grandview, which is near Yakima, and so yeah, and they would come and visit. And then my uncles, Uncle Andy and Uncle George, they lived in Cleellum, and they all the family helped my mom and Aunt Betty and Aunt Polly. And I remember Aunt Polly buying my shoes for school, and Aunt Betty was my godmother, and I mean, and they helped Mom a lot with.
So it sounds like your parents really had to struggle.
Oh, they really did, and like I say, you know, he did the chickens and stuff like that. That's kind of where they, and then my dad or my Uncle Andy and Uncle George, they would. They'd come drive over from Cleellum and bring my folks, you know, maybe 5 or 6 boxes of apples and stuff, because my dad had an apple orchard over there that someone was taking care of it for him, because he came to Seattle to get a job at the Ford plant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he got a job, and I think it was maybe his first day on the job. He and another guy were carrying a big heavy metal table someplace where they were working. And the other guy dropped his end and it fell on, and it broke my dad's back. I mean, it didn't break apart or anything, but it broke some vertebrae in there. So it really, he had to be careful. If he would accidentally move too fast or turn too fast, man, he'd walk all over like this for, you know, maybe a week.
Did he lose his job then?
Yeah.
Because of the broken back?
Yeah.
So he didn't work and do anything for quite a long time.
No, that's why he had the farm and had raised the chickens and sold the eggs, and we had a couple of cows. And I used to have to deliver milk down. We had those old-fashioned bottles with the cardboard top.
And how'd you deliver them? Did you have a wagon, or what did you have?
No. I mean, well, I don't think I might have had a wagon, but I don't remember. I just think I carried them. I mean, the Hopes lived up on 143rd Meridian, and so I would go up there and deliver the milk in the morning to them, and then after school, I'd go walk up there from my house and get the empties to bring them home.
Oh. Did any of the foster kids help with the chores around the house?
I think they did. I think we all had chores to do. I just don't remember, you know.
So if you went, did you go to Grandview to visit your grandparents?
Dad, yeah, I used to go with my dad and had the old switchbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember it was a long trip. It took 6 hours to drive over there, and I can remember laying on the front seat with my head in my dad's lap as he was driving.
Uh-huh.
I must have drove him nuts.
Why?
Oh, just because I was talkative and crazy. And
did Aunt Dorothy go with you on some of those trips?
No, she never. She might have gone before I went, because she was 5 years older than me. So by the time, but I think I kind of went to keep him company, and then I'd stay with my grandma. This Wayne guy, he was about 5 or maybe 10 years older than me, but he was the only kid around, and so we'd go under the grapevine. It was kind of grew, and it was like a little house in there. It was a
briar.
Yeah.
How old were you then?
Oh, kid, you know how old? I was probably maybe 5 or 6, and he'd get these straws and get these tobacco weeds, and we'd go and hide under that thing, you know.
So when you went over and stayed with your grandparents, did you stay for like a week or just a summer?
I don't remember. I did stay for quite a while.
And would your dad leave you there, or would?
Well, he stayed with my grandma because they had a piece of property that was a couple miles away from where my grandma was, and so that's.
So he'd stay there, and you'd stay with your grandma.
Well, I think he probably stayed with my grandma too.
Oh, so what do you think your earliest memory is? If you went back, like to your childhood, what would be? Is there anything that stands out?
You know, I was thinking, maybe a couple of years ago, thinking about, well, over at my grandma's, my earliest memory is this Wayne kid who lived across the street, of us smoking
dope?
smoking in a straw, and there was a tobacco weed. It was a long, tall weed, and it had brown, dried up things, and you'd pull them off, you know.
So then I'm going to move on to your, when you were in high school. Well, first of all, you met Ann Segali. Have you talked about Ann Segali?
Well, Ann Segali, we started first grade together, and I don't know, we just became fast friends, and she had 3 brothers, and they tormented her. And one time she came to the house, and she was hiding because she threw a can of food at her big brother Billy, who was Dorothy's age. And so she came to my house to hide because she figured that, you know, I think she hit him in the stomach.
And she lived kind of near you, and you guys rode bikes?
No, she lived on 122nd and
that's about a mile away.
on the south side of Haller Lake.
Yeah, but didn't you guys ride bicycles together?
Oh yeah, we'd ride bicycles back and forth. And she came down. We were good friends. We stayed friends forever until she died.
And what would you do? Did you go swimming in Haller Lake?
Yep.
Did you ice skate on
Yep.
Haller Lake?
Yep. They used to freeze over, and
Did it freeze over every year?
it did for quite a few years, and then the winters just didn't get that cold anymore. And but in high school, they're pretty much in high school, which would have been like 1938 to 1942.
Did you ever get in trouble at home? How were you disciplined? How did your parents discipline you if you
Okay,
misbehaved?
my dad whipped me with an ironing cord, and I remember or upstairs there in the hall, anyway, you could go through all the doors, and my dad, I'd done something out with cleaning a chicken food thing, and he was
Something you
and I
didn't
knew
do?
and I knew he was going to give me a good whipping, so I came in, and so I ran upstairs, and he followed me, and so I was running around. Well, there was one door that when it folded back, and I hid behind that, and he didn't know that I was there, and I remember Sister Christine saying, "Oh, come!" She was crying because she knew he was going to spank me. She said, "Come out, come out." She said, "You know, he's getting madder and madder." And so I guess I finally did. I just remember running around and hiding behind that door.
Oh, did you get in trouble very often?
Yeah. I was a brat.
So what would you do that would get you into trouble? Can you think of anything?
Well, I think a lot of it was I had to clean out the troughs at the kitchen that the chickens ate out of. They were in these big, there's individual, cages that the chickens each had their own, and they'd lay their egg and come down, whatever.
And you had to clean. Did you have to clean
Yeah,
their
so
food?
I had to clean out where they put their food, because they'd kind of spit or whatever.
And you
So
didn't
I
want to
had-
do that.
And yeah, well, I know that was my job, and I didn't like it, and so I imagine there was times that I did a crappy job, So
Did you ever try to run away from home?
I did once. And
How old were
oh,
you?
I remember. I said I was going to run away, and so my mom, she was good. She said, "Well, I'll help you pack." So she went and got a suitcase, and she started putting in, "Oh, you like canned peaches or whatever, you know." and then by then I was crying because I changed my mind. I didn't want it. I can remember her doing that. She was, and of course she boarded, 45 children in the time that there, and she was,
So this is a picture of your mom in the newspaper.
yeah, and that's one of the little boys. His name was Billy, and yeah.
What about Billy?
Well, I mean, I just remember that he was one of her boarders.
Oh.
And he'd get mad, and he'd throw himself on the floor and bang around, he just because he was mad for some reason. And so you know what my mom would do? She said, "Oh," and he was stamping and mad, and she said, "You like to do that? Okay, you got to do that for 3 minutes." And she had a little switch. She had him go out and get a switch, which was a little willow thingamajiggy. And so she said, "You like to jump and scream? Okay, you do that for 2 minutes." And if quit, she'd just a little bit on his legs, you know. But he had only done it once, and he never did it again.
So were these kids, they didn't have parents, or what was the
They had
situation?
mothers that were divorced. Most of them, they were divorced, and they had to work. So then, and they'd take them home on a weekend.
Oh.
But they had mom, and she had people wanting to take kids all the time. She was good, and so a lot of the kids that had really bad habits and the parents couldn't break them, whatever it was, my mom knew how to break them. And she wasn't mean, and I mean didn't hit them a lot or hard or whatever, you know. But if they did something, she'd say, "Oh, you like to do that? Well, do it some more." And they'd once they had to do it for 2 or 3 minutes, and then after that they decided that wasn't a good idea.
So you had to share a lot of your mom's attention with other kids.
Yeah, I never thought I was just one of the gang,
Yeah.
because there was times that she had like 5 or 6 foster kids, and these were children of divorced women, you know, and they had to work.
One other thing I wanted to ask you was you graduated from high school at 17. You started working. Is that when you started going out to Parker's, or?
Oh, no, I'd never gone to Parker's. I mean, I only went once when I met Dad.
And was it love at first sight?
It seemed to be for him. And of course, I had never had a boyfriend, so I was delighted that somebody was paying some attention to me and thought I was kind of special.
So, and then you got, how long after you met did you get married?
Well, we met on 18th of April. He asked me to marry him about 6 weeks after I met him. And then we just dated and decided to get married.
And then Dad was working, and you had Stanley, and then
Well, I
the
met
war
him
broke
at
out,
Dick
right?
Parker's. I met Dad at Dick Parker's, and so after that he came every single day. He picked me up. He picked me up from school because he worked down at the Stoneway, and then I went to Lincoln, so he'd get off work and pick me up, and
He came every day after he
yeah,
met you.
especially after he tasted my mom's cooking. I think.
Can you tell us a little bit about Dad? He had 4 sisters,
3.
3 sisters,
Betty and Bernice and Dorothy.
and his mom was single, or.
Yeah, but she was dating Gene when I met him.
And then you never met. Dad didn't meet. Your dad was.
His dad died when Dad was 4.
So I have a picture of you on your wedding day.
Yeah.
Okay. And was this, you were guys taking a picture in a hedge?
Well, my mom had a hedge in the front yard, and I stood on the other side. Dorothy said, "Oh, then look through there."
So can you tell us about your wedding day?
Well, it's something that I'm really ashamed of. You know, Dorothy said when we
Were you the first to get married?
yeah, Dorothy got married after me.
Okay.
Dorothy said, "Why don't you pretend you're leaving?" She wanted to get a picture of us getting in the car, you know, and we had the reception. We hadn't even been in there, cut the wedding cake or anything. And oh, kid, I can't believe I was so stupid. So anyway, I got on. We pretended, you know, we were leaving, and so we were in the car, and we said, "Well, we're in the car. Why don't we just keep going?" So we didn't even. Kid, I was so immature. It was just ridiculous.
So you mean you didn't attend your own wedding reception?
No. Isn't kid? I don't even want to admit that. But I mean, I tell you, I was really immature.
So
I don't know how I made it this far.
So did you get married in church?
Yeah, Christ the King.
And then you came home
And we had a reception.
and you took some photographs outside.
Yeah.
And then you
And
didn't
then
go to the
she-
reception.
Yeah, I don't think I did, honey. Can you believe that I was that stupid? Yeah, you can, because I'm still
so
stupid.
then when did so where'd you go on your honeymoon?
We went to Seaside, Oregon. I just think a long weekend.
And then you moved in next to
Well,
next door to your,
then we lived with my mom for 8 months before we got. Oh, I did everything wrong.
So why'd you live with your mom for 8 months?
Because we had no place else to live. We both were living at home. Well, we got the garage. We bought the property from my dad right alongside, and
Right
there was
next
a
door.
garage on there.
Right next door to your house.
It was yeah, where we lived all the years you guys grew up.
But it was a garage when you bought the property.
Yeah, and so and we lived with my mom, and then Stan took the garage and he built a kitchen and a bathroom, and put a furnace in there, and then he added on. It had a little back porch, so he enlarged that, and then we were in there. Gosh, how long? I think we were in there 9 years or some darn thing, and so then we had Stanley, and Steve, and Mary, and Steve, and we added on to the back of the garage, the kitchen, and we added this back room, and put bunk beds in there and a crib. You were in the crib.
So did you ever move where the kitchen was located or the
No,
bathroom?
it stayed there, and we just added around it, all the way around it.
And then when did you put the upstairs on?
Oh, I think about 1950. I was pregnant with Chris.
Chris. Okay. And did anyone help Dad build the house?
Oh, I think some of his friends came.
Do you remember how long it took for you to build it before you could move in?
Forever.
Yeah.
Oh no, we moved in.
After 8 months.
I don't know. Yeah, about. And then he added the upper ones.
So when did you work before you got married or work
I worked at S.L. Savage.
before you got married?
Yeah, out of high school. Well, that was Michael. I mean, you know, I would see water coming out of the chandelier in the dining room, you know, and where in the hell did that come from, you know? And Michael, who is quite the farmer, oh my gosh, he when I went up there, because I never, you know, here's the the stairs going up, and then you go around here, and that was his bedroom. And then back behind there again, there was that little
closet.
Yeah, a little closet-y thing.
And you went in the
Well,
closet.
yeah, and so, anyway, this water was coming down, and I thought one night, and so I stomped upstairs and up there, and here he had a greenhouse with growing marijuana. Oh, so
then what'd you do?
Noelle can tell you, because so Dad went up and got the plants and brought them downstairs, and there was a fire going in the fireplace, and so he threw them in the fireplace, and Noelle said, "Don't do that, we'll all get high."
And that's exactly what they did. And I sat right in front of the fireplace and just smoked it all in.
Oh, kid. I don't know. Crazy. And then, of course, Michael, he was growing marijuana plants out in the cherry tree in the backyard. He climbed up, and I couldn't see him because there was lots of leaves, So here he had marijuana plants there.
He had quite the green thumb.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us about what it was like to prepare for Christmas for, 10 kids?
Well, I wanted each kid to give their brother and sister something. And I tried to get something for everything. And, and I'd buy combs and pins and stuff. So just simple little things so everybody could give each other something. And of course, we had, one main gift that we gave to them. But I tried to make it even, and I tried to help you guys each give each other something, I don't know if you remember that.
What'd you do for Christmas trees?
One of the tricks we did was we'd go down to the 99-cent place at Chubby and Tubby's, and Stan would get 2 trees and wire them together because they were so skimpy. So, and then one year he sprayed just with plain old white paint. We wanted a white Christmas tree, so he sprayed it with this white paint and decorated. I think we only did that once, but everybody seemed to have the white trees, so we wanted to do that.
So I want to you make a comment on, while you're having everybody buy a gift for everybody. I remember that you multiply 11 times 11. What does that equal? That's a whole lot of presents. I just remember it was a mountain.
Oh yeah,
of presents
oh yeah,
on the tree.
yeah.
120 presents.
Yeah, I don't know. I just tried to make it so it was equal and fair, and I think. Kid, don't ask me. I don't know how I did it. And then I'd tell people, I don't know how I did it. I don't know why I did it. I did that once. I was someplace where we went from the hot to the cold, and
But the question is, how'd you feel after?
I don't remember. But I remember it was kind of miserable to be jumping something so cold.
I remember doing some hot springs. Hot springs are really fun. Have you ever done hot springs?
Oh, I think once I was over on the peninsula. I was someplace. Yeah, over on like Port Townsend, something over there. There's a hot springs.
The Coal Tuck or something, or Coal Tuck or something. Hot Springs. Yep.
I was in one. I was over there one time, and I remember being in a hot springs.
Yeah. What did that experience feel like? What did it look like? Were you like on vacation with Stan?
Yeah, I'm sure we were on vacation driving around there. So I'm trying to think some of the interesting places I've been. because I went to the Holy Land for 10 days and went to Rome, got to the Sistine Chapel,
Ooh.
and I went on with a group of people. We went for 10 days, and like I say, we went to the Holy Land and the places over in, there.
Yeah, what was your experience being in Rome?
Oh, I loved it. And the gal who was our tour guide, she says, "Let me tell you how to cross an Italian street. Smile and keep walking." Because they, honest to God, I never did see an accident over there. They drive like maniacs. I mean, if you're standing on a curb and they go by, I said they almost take the buttons off your shirt. They just go so fast and so close. I mean, it seems like they're just 2 or 3 inches from you, if you're standing waiting to cross. They're crazy drivers over there.
But you just walked out across and smiled,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
did what it-
that's what the gal said.
What's your favorite meal, Grandma?
I love eggs. Really, I mean, I could eat eggs 3 times a day. I like eggs. But, I'm trying to think. I like everything. I really do.
Veggies.
My favorite breakfast would be, what's the one? With the egg and the poached egg and the...
Have you ever done eggs Benedict?
Yeah.
Eggs,
Yeah.
I've
I don't
made
have
that.
it very often, but I do love it. It's so...
What do you hope to leave behind? Like if you look at your life, from beginning to end.
I would like to be remembered most that I had a lot of compassion for people. I mean, that's the main thing that I can think of. I remember when I was a little kid, my best friend's mother had TB, and they had a screened porch, and she slept out there. And I just remember thinking, I was like 10, and I used to go over there. She needed a blabbery kid, like she needed a hole in the head. But I just used to think how lonesome it must have been for her to had in those days. People with TB, they put them on screen porches, and they slept outside year round. I don't know. They seemed to think that was good.
And that was one of your friends, your age?
Yeah. Shirley Gardner.
Yeah.
And we started. I think they moved out there when I was in 4th or 5th grade. And shame on me, they had a Gravenstein tree.
What's that?
Gravenstein, it's the most delicious apple there is. And oh my gosh. And so, and I'd run through there was other people's property, but you could run from one street to another to get there. Oh, it was hard.
Grandma, do you remember anything about Grandpa's family? About
My dad's.
Yeah, Stan, your husband. Yeah.
No, we didn't know much about them. His family came from Canada. They're English, and but he didn't know much about his family either. And he apparently had an uncle named Curly Strickland from up in over in eastern Washington. But Stan didn't really know a lot about the family, and I kind of had a feeling that they didn't like Stan's mother. We didn't know any of his family. I mean,
So you never spent any time with his with your in-laws?
No, well, I mean, his mother, was here, and his sisters.
But not his dad?
But the extended family, no, we didn't hear too much.
What about Stan's dad?
Well, he died when Stan was 4.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Had a burst appendix, and he was a railroad man, and they just couldn't get him to the doctor in time.
Wow. 4 years old.
Yeah.
And she never remarried?
Yeah, she did, but she didn't get remarried until after Stan got married. He and I mean, she'd been dating Gene for a long, long time, and then
When did Stan's mom die?
1942 or 43, because she got married after Stan married me.
Right.
She didn't want to, apparently she had waited, she'd been dating Dean for 4 or 5 years or so, and she apparently didn't want to get married before Stan did.
Did you like Dean?
Oh yeah, he was a nice guy. And they bought a house out in the South End, and they liked to garden, and they were happily married. Happily married.
She developed dementia. It's in a nursing home.
Yeah, she got
Died in,
dementia.
what, the 70s?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they put her next to me. She had 3 daughters and a son, and they put her in my backyard. So I took care of her till she died, and I was with her. I just happened to go up to the nursing home, and by golly, she died. That when
So, Eileen, have you talked about your relationship with your church, Christ the King, and your life with that? Because that was such an important part.
Well, I mean, I went to this church all my life, and Father Fitzgerald, who started at the parish, and he's the one who married me and baptized most of the kids, or maybe all of them. I don't know. No, I think he died before the last of them came along. Yeah.
And how many times a week did you go to church?
Well, I went on when I had all the kids and stuff. I just went on Sundays, but then after the kids and they were gone and stuff, then I used to go every day. To me, the greatest gift God gave me was letting me be Catholic. I just love being Catholic. So, and I was active when I could be. The kids were in school, and so then, of course, I was active with their school stuff and everything. But then, I volunteered. I went to the nursing home and took communion to the people there for 40 years.
Wow.
So I tried to do my part.
And you made lots of, like, clothes, did you, for people? And
Oh, I was always doing something.
Some of the near misses where we almost killed each other. What was it, Ben? Was it Mark who burned himself or almost stabbed himself in the leg? Remember that? He was playing
That
war.
was John.
That was John.
John. He came around the holly tree, and he was pretending he was going to say, and so he come up behind, and he stabbed himself in the thigh with a 7.5-inch knife. It's in there. I still got it.
You still got the knife?
Yeah.
That's funny. Then I
It's
think,
got the black handle and a slightly curved.
and then wasn't there something happened with Mark? Didn't he burn himself or something?
No, but he started a fire in the grass, and then
Or was
somebody
that Chris?
called the firemen, and it was our property. It was in the middle. I mean, it was property all the way around, and the firemen didn't know how to get in there, because they'd had to go back in through our property.
And then where did the fire go from there?
Well, they just came and put it out. It was Chris and Kim Dykes.
There was a shed that was burning.
Well, that was in the other people's property.
Oh, was that another fire?
Yeah.
Put your hands up here.
I remember us playing football, and one time I think I was tackling Chris, and he went right through the fence. That was funny.
But do you remember when Stanley was in the kitchen? He came home from the service, and he was telling about how he
A basketball player.
basketball player, and he jumped up and he hit the chandelier and cut his hand, had to go and have stitches.
Oh, yeah, it was a serious cut. I'm curious about the house, the big house that your grandfather, did he build that, or was that already there, or what?
No, they bought it. It was, the guy went bankrupt in 1920 something, and then my dad came over from Yakima, and it was cheap, you know.
Uh-huh.
I think he bought the house for $500.
Oh, my goodness.
Seems to me that I could be wrong.
So how old were you when you moved into it then? How long have they had the house?
Well, they bought the house before I was born.
Okay.
They bought it in 1920, 22,
And then there was a bunch of land with that too, right?
2 acres.
And he sold the land for some of those houses on, what,
Yeah.
First Avenue?
Yeah.
You know, how do you feel? I know you mentioned that us being boys, we could be difficult in a few areas of growing up, and yet after we grew up, like for instance John, how he became an incredible mechanic
Yeah.
and quite a historian and a reader.
Yeah.
That must make you really proud.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And,
Because John was, he was difficult.
well, I think we were all difficult
Yeah, but
in a
no,
way.
John was particularly difficult.
Do you remember
But
when
he's changed an awful lot.
Yeah.
But I do remember Stanley when he had his paper route and a BB gun, and the gas station down there on the corner, you know, First
Uh-huh,
Avenue,
right.
whatever. And so he was shooting a BB gun, and he was shooting at the big plate glass window that was in the gas station.
Wow.
And they caught him, so he had to earn $75 to pay to replace that
So how did he earn that money?
with his paper route.
I suppose as you look at the boys that do the finished carpentry and all, they took on some of the talents that Dad had.
Absolutely. And the girls are all they like to cook and they like to sew.
Uh-huh.
So the girls took on a lot of the things that I enjoyed doing.
Uh-huh. Dad I'd like you to share a little bit about during World War II. You had said earlier that Dad had worked at Todd Shipyard.
Yep. And he was deferred at the first of the war because he went down and tried to enlist, but they wouldn't take him because he was working on the war effort.
Right.
Yeah.
At the shipyard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you mentioned that he was kind of harassed for not being in uniform. Because the people looked down on people that were.
Yeah. Yeah, we would, we'd go out to a movie or something, you know, and somebody would walk by, going the other way, and you'd hear, they'd say it so you could hear, he must be 4F, you know. More than once that happened.
So, and then in that was 42, so that was in 1943 they let him go in to the Navy.
Yeah.
And he
Well,
was
they
on.
didn't let him go in because he worked at the shipyard.
But later
That's
they
why he
did.
was deferred
Yeah.
for 6-8 months.
So later they did then.
Yeah.
And he ended up on, was it a repair ship in Saipan or something?
Well, he was in Saipan, and in fact, and he was on Saipan, and they got shore leave, and here his sister's husband was in the Army, and he was there too, and they didn't know it. And I don't know, they were walking someplace, they saw each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Eddie, you know, but Betty's husband.
Now, didn't I think he said he had seen some of the bombing on Saipan?
I don't remember. I don't remember
I think you
any
remember
of that.
telling me that. But he did work on a repair ship.
Yeah.
That PIP boats that were damaged
Yeah,
from
yeah.
kamikazes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, so how long was he actually in the service then?
I think he was in. I think it was just a little less than 2 years.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember when he went in. He got out, you know. Then he got out because he had a child. So the draft anyway. They.
So was the war still going on when he came back as having a child, or was the war over at that point?
I think he didn't get out till it was over, but he was in, like I say, 23 months or something
Right.
like that.
So did he stay over there in Japan or whatever, or did he come back stateside?
Like I say, if he had a child or this or that or the other thing, he just came back through the regular draft.
I had one question about school. Did you do homeschooling or you went to public schools?
Well, I went to Haller Lake School,
Okay.
and I went to Haller Lake School, Lincoln High School.
So how long after you were married did you become pregnant with Stanley?
10 minutes. No. About a month.
About a month. Marcia, how long was it after we got married then?
How long?
About a month.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are right on time.
Yeah. Well, then,
Yeah.
you know, and so when, of course, I had Stanley, and then when Stan got home, we wanted to have another baby. And I remember crying. I couldn't get pregnant from like February to like September, whatever. And then I finally got pregnant with Mary. I said, "Oh, God's not going to give me any more babies. I'm not a good mother."
Boy, did he answer that prayer.
Yeah.
In spades, that's for sure. So you really didn't work for very long after you got out of high school.
No, I worked at SL Savage in the parts department,
Yeah.
and I was a cashier.
I have. Do you remember
Yeah,
this picture, Mom? So
I made those. That was for a Halloween party.
Right. So this was. When was this? Was it you and Dad?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I don't know. Probably in the 50s or 60s.
So would you? Because I know we had, and then Mark and I wore it, and then you have Sarah and Maggie
Yeah,
that wore that.
yeah.
So would you usually make? I know you sewed a lot. I remember you
I
made me learn how to sew, which I didn't want to, but you
Yeah.
made me. So how was it making all the? I mean, one thing I remember is all our Easter outfits.
Yeah.
So how would you find time to make the dresses and?
You know what? Most of the time, I'd get you guys to bed, and had a treadle machine. It was before I had the electric, and when I got you guys in bed, you know, sometimes I'd sew till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, because I mean I couldn't do much with the little kids running around.
Right. So, Mom, when did you sleep?
Well, I guess when I got tired.
Because I remember times that you'd be up sewing, and it seems
Yeah.
like you were always doing something.
Well, because I mean, when the kids were running around, you know, you had to have some time to do something and finish, and not have to keep jumping up and checking on this, that, or the
Right.
other thing. So I did a lot of stuff. I just got everybody in bed, you know, Stan included, and then I'd maybe start sewing about 10 o'clock at night, and I'd maybe sew until 2 in the morning.
Oh my gosh. So, Mom, when did you go to like the regular fabric store, or did you go to Remnants, or
Oh,
what?
you know, I was always on the lookout, and I was always looking in the remnant bin, and and people gave me material too, you know. And I made 100 quilts that I gave to the homeless
Yes.
over a period of 6 months or so.
Right. Well, I think you still have some of the fabric in the back
Probably,
office.
probably.
Okay. Do you? One thing I remember is the parties you would have at the house, and you would have you and Dad, and it was like the Knights
And
of
Father
Columbus,
Monahan and Father
right?
Carroll.
And and you would take the big dining room table out of our dining room, and that would be the dance floor.
Yeah.
So how did that?
Oh, that worked good. You know, that worked good. Yeah, we had fabulous friends, and we'd go camping. You know, like the Leopolds and the Rankies and so many people liked us for guests. You know, the Rankies took us to Mexico 17 years in a row.
Right.
And I'd say, Kathy, you don't need to ask us every year just because you asked us last year to come to Mexico and be with them in their timeshare. And she said to me, oh, Eileen, I can't think of anybody I'd rather spend 2 weeks with than you. And I consider that a compliment.
Well, that's good. So, Mom, what do you remember? We used to, of course, when we did like a vacation, if it was usually camping or going to the lake. Probably at the time, you probably had at least 7 or 8 kids, maybe 9,
Oh,
in
and
a
I
big
had all
tent.
of them. Yeah.
And how did you prepare and get
I don't
ready?
know, but we had a trailer, one of those with 4 sides. And so John that would be his playpen. And we had to take 2 cars because we needed the 2 cars for the kids, and then on the trailer thing, that's where we'd put all the food and all that kind of stuff.
Well, how would you get all? I mean, the clothes, just.
I don't know. I just did.
Did Dad help?
Not much.
Ask her the
He
funniest
didn't help
mem-
much with any of the kids.
Ask her the funniest memories of those camping trips.
Yeah, what would be some of the more fun or memorable memories from some of our camping trips? Anything?
Well,
that
you know, we
comes
used to
mind?
go with the Leopolds and the other families from Christ the King, and we'd have there'd be about 5 or 7 families, and we'd have baseball games and all kinds of stuff, and I don't know, we just had a good time, and then in the nights we played cards, you know, when the kids got older, and we just had 5 or 6 or 7 families, and 2 or 3 of them had 10 kids each.
Bumping Lake, I remember, and this would be just our family at Bumping
Yeah.
Lake. What, I mean,
Well,
I
remember that as trapping the chipmunks.
Yes, yes. So how did that was a memorable, I still remember that.
Stanley. And he made a trap, 4 thing, I don't know anyway, but I don't know, we just had fun. And we'd play, the opposite of hide and seek.
Capture the flag.
Capture the flag?
Whatever.
Beat up your brother and sister?
I don't know. I don't remember.
They had all these tree trunks and all these kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did we?
Bumping Lake.
You'd hide in them.
Yeah. Well, I remember. Do you remember when? And Dad had the boat. Dad had our little aluminum fishing boat, and we were in Bumping Lake, and you had to be really careful because it was a man-made lake, and you had stumps. And Mike was driving. I don't think Dad was not. It was Mike and it was just Mike in the boat, and he came just barreling into the shore. And
That
Dad,
was Stanley.
was it Stanley?
Yeah.
And didn't pull up the motor and just drilled the whole
Yeah.
motor and in the boat right into the sand. And I think Dad was gonna have a conniption. So here's a picture, Mom. Remember this?
Well, absolutely. That's Stanley and Mary and Steve. Steve looks like something from a concentration camp. Look at his ribs there. You can count them. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yeah, and we would go to Bumping Lake on a Monday. Mm-hmm. And the only people there were fishermen, because all the weekend people were gone.
Right.
So that's where.
Well, I remember when this was later, when most of the kids were out of the house, and Dad had the camper. So
Yeah.
we would go, and at this point, it would have been John, Mike, and I think Betsy and Mark. But we would go, I don't know, went camping,
Yeah.
and we stopped for, I don't think we stopped for ice cream, we stopped to use the bathroom. And you guys drove off and left me there.
Yeah, well, we were
at the gas
someplace
station.
over there, and everybody went to the bathroom, and so we're ready to get back in, and we said, was everybody here? Because you piled in the back of the camper.
Right.
Oh yeah, everybody's here. So off we go, and we got about 10 miles down the road and realized that we didn't have no oil. Oh my gosh. And so of course we drove back, and here she is standing on the corner crying her eyes out because we'd gone off and left her. Oh.
Yeah, so much for my brothers and sisters.
Well, when there's 8 or 10 kids, you don't notice one's missing.
Mm-hmm. Well, what was the transition? Remember, we used to have the big circus tent. We didn't have the camper.
Yeah.
So it was just the circus tent.
Oh, I don't even remember those days.
And then we had just the Coleman stove, and Dad you guys would be cooking on the picnic table.
Yeah.
And we'd just all be in a circus tent
And
in a sleeping bag.
We almost always went with, like, say, the Leopolds or the Baileys, and there was,
Mm-hmm.
and these were kids that they went to school with. We just had a wonderful basis of friends.
Right. You did great.
Okay, I've just been so lucky, and where I grew up and my neighbors, I stayed in touch with, like, Mrs. McPherson, who was Ann was my friend, and because I stayed in the same area for
Right.
all those years, I just kept in touch with everybody. I knew them, and I knew their mom and dad, and then, like I say, then we got older and we played pinochle and we went camping, and so I've kind of had the same core of friends for all my life.
Forever. You're lucky.
How about that?
You're blessed.
Yeah,
That's a blessing.
Your generation, I don't think will have that.
They don't have the community, unfortunately. It's
I think they should do a television program on it's called Survivors.
Yeah, that's right. Survivor. I'm a survivor.